Greetings in the great and mighty name of our King Jesus Christ. I am Marco Kiroglu from Countdown to Christ Ministries, and in this episode I'm going to talk to you about the mysterious church age. Apostle Paul in his writings often referred to church age as the great mystery because prophets in the Old Testament could not understand, could not envision, could not comprehend. In spite of all the prophecies they received, they could not comprehend that there was going to be, in a future time, that there was going to be a period of nearly 2,000 years where the Jewish or the Israeli nation, the 12 tribes of Israel, will be scattered all over the world, but they will be absolutely insignificant and, in fact, out of service when it comes to serving God. In their place, God was going to use the Gentiles as his representatives. That is the mystery. That is the mystery that also Apostle Paul referred to when he said, anybody now can come into this kingdom of Jesus Christ. And that was another aspect of this mystery. You don't have to be a Jew to become clean and to be accepted by God in his eternal kingdom. Just believe in Jesus as you are, wherever you are. These are the two aspects of the mystery. The one aspect is that the 12 tribes of Israel, the Israeli nation, their remnants will be alive all over the world, but they will be absolutely out of service when it comes to serving God. And they will not be God's prophets and priests and messengers. In their place, God is going to use Gentiles from all over the world, from the unclean nations. That's one aspect. The second aspect is anybody from any ethnic background, any tribe, any language can now come and be saved and be counted as a child of God. Now, in our Bible prophecy mentoring program, I asked this question of looking at a prophetic chart, which I have drawn up some time ago, and I asked them to tell me what they see in the church age. Now, this video is also coming as a response to the question I posed there. The mystery, the church age, what do you see when you look at it with a bird's eye view into the Bible prophecy? What do you see in the church age? Did you know church age is a mystery, as Apostle Paul wrote it, and it began with a transition season. Now I want to take you back to 0 AD, about the time that Jesus was born. From that time, the transition began actually. From 0 AD until 70 AD, the Jewish nation started declining. Now here I want to clarify again, what is the phrase Israel and what does the phrase Jewish mean? Jewish actually means not all the 12 tribes of Israel. It actually means Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. These three tribes. They are the remnants of the kingdom of Judah, or the southern kingdom. There was also another kingdom after the Solomon's kingship. Israel divided into two kingdoms. Remember that? The 10 tribes in the north, that is the northern kingdom, they were scattered. So by the time we were in 0 AD, the 10 tribes of Israel in the northern kingdom were already long gone. They were already long scattered and disappeared into nowhere that nobody knows. And nobody could trace them anymore. 10 tribes were gone. Therefore, even today, many people refer to them as the 10 lost tribes. But Jews, basically the descendants of Judah, Benjamin, and Levi from the southern kingdom, were still in Israel. They were in occupation of Jerusalem. And there comes Jesus, and he reaches the age of 30, around the 30 AD. And he began his ministry of 3.5 years. And in 33 AD, Jesus is crucified. And after that, there comes the day of Pentecost, and church is officially birthed and appointed by God to be his instrument for this new season. The church age began on the day of Pentecost, when as you read in the book of Acts, when Peter preaches, more than 3,000 become a believer. That is the birth of the church as we know today. Now, when this happened, Israel was still in Jerusalem. Not Israel, Jews were still in Jerusalem. 10 tribes were already long gone. But these Jews that were in Jerusalem, a tiny fraction, tiny remnant of the great Israeli kingdom at one time. So then, after the Pentecost, there is even further decline. And by the time 70 AD, Roman soldiers come and invade Jerusalem, sack the city, burn the city, destroy the temple, burn it down to ashes, carry away all the gold and valuable items to Rome, and all the Jews are scattered all over the world. That was the end of the final remnants of the 12 tribes of Israel. That was end of it. That was the end, as you could say it. It was it. Finished. Nobody could predict that there was going to be a day that this finished off tribes of Judah or the tribes, the 12 tribes of Jacob or Israelites will ever come back. They will ever come back. Nobody could predict that. And that was it. But did you know this is the moment, this is the point of mystery. This is the moment mystery began revealing. And that's why Apostle Paul could see this. And he could often refer to it as the mystery. And if you go read the writings of Apostle Paul, in fact, I believe he could see what was going to happen. He could now study the prophecies in the hindsight, and he could see that one day Jews are going to come back. But did you know one prophet wrote about it in the Old Testament? Prophet Ezekiel wrote about it. Prophet Ezekiel in chapters 36, 37, 38, and 39, he extensively wrote about how in one day in the future, the remnants of the Jews will come back to Jerusalem. In fact, they will come back to their promised land. And then they will build an independent state, a Jewish state, after nearly 2,000 years of exile. They will revive their original language. They will reinstitute their original currency. They will again begin to study the scriptures and worship God in Jerusalem. And then later on in his prophecies, Prophet Ezekiel even said that once this happens, it will not only be the Jews, it will not only be the descendants of the Judah, Benjamin, and Levi. No. It will be the descendants of all the 12 tribes of Israel that will gather together. All the 12 tribes, even the lost 10 tribes will come back and they will join and they will establish one kingdom, one country, one government, and there will be one government leader. There will not be anymore two kingdoms like the southern kingdom and northern kingdom, but one big kingdom. And that is exactly what happened. Today's nation of Israel, the country of Israel, is exact fulfillment of that prophecy. Now, let's go back to again, 30 to 70 AD period. By the time we reach 30 AD, the gospel was already being, just after 30 AD, after the Pentecost, let's say after 33 AD, after Jesus died and rose again and ascended to heaven, and the Pentecost took place, and now the gospel is in the hands of the Gentiles. Now, it was the Gentiles that was on the rise, and Jews were on the decline. And it was the Gentiles that were receiving the gospel from the Jews. Jews were on the decline sociopolitically, but they had the gospel. And they were passing the gospel on to the Gentiles all over the world. And a good example of that is Apostle Paul himself, being a Jew passing the gospel to the Gentiles. And this continued like that for the next 40 years. By the time 70 AD, Israel and the Gentiles, Israel and the Jewish kingdom and Jerusalem was completely destroyed. And in the following 2,000 years, it has been the Gentile Christians who have been representatives, pastors and prophets and preachers and priests of God all over the world, not the Jews. Maybe here and there, one or two Jews who came to believe in Jesus and serve God. But generally speaking, it was the Gentiles, not the Jews. 2,000 years passes by like that, nearly 2,000 years. And then there comes a time of 1948. In 1948, after the Second World War, we began to see a rapid decline in Christianity. Suddenly, Christianity begins to experience a rapid decline. Western Christian civilizations plunge into an unprecedented moral decline and turning away from God. Christianity is losing its momentum rapidly. Churches are abandoning biblical truth, biblical doctrine, largely all over the world. And right in the middle of it, Jews, remnants of Jews from the Second World War, made their way to their promised land, re-established their independent country, Israel, and they are busy reinstituting their original language, Hebrew. All the Jews that come to their homeland are being taught their original language, Hebrew. I'm talking about 1948 to 1950 period now. And they reinstitute their original currency. They rebuild their military. They recultivate the barren land which was left barren for nearly 2,000 years. Israel is being birthed out of nowhere. Again, in direct fulfillment of Ezekiel 36, 37, 38, and 39 prophecies. Now, as you can see, there's a parallelity here. From 30 AD to 70 AD, Israel was in decline and diminished. And what finished off Israel was the destruction of the temple. 70 AD, the temple was destroyed, and after that, it was the end of the road for the nation of Israel, or the Jews as a nation. But now, in 1948, they came back, and after that, every year, thousands and thousands of Jews are flooding back to their homeland, and Israel is, since that day, every day, Israel is becoming more powerful, more prosperous, diplomatically more stronger, developing in every area you can think of. And at the same time, church is declining. Since 1948, every day, Western Christianity is losing momentum. Church is declining. That is exactly a parallel movement. In the 30 to 70 AD period, it was the Israelites that were declining because they were phasing out in line with Bible prophecy. Now, since 1948 until now, it was the Gentile Christians that are now declining and losing momentum, again, in perfect alignment with Bible prophecy. At the same time, Israel is gaining momentum. But you know what will happen? Now, the third temple, Jews are going to build the third temple in Israel, in Jerusalem. How do we know that? We know it from Bible prophecy again. But the building of the third temple is a very significant event, just like the destruction of the second temple was a significant event. What finished off Israel or Judah as a kingdom in 70 AD was the final destruction of the second temple. After that, they were finished off. Now, what will catapult the current nation of Israel to the forefront in God's agenda is the building of the third temple. The third temple will be finished off and inaugurated in the middle of the 7-year tribulation. And after that, Jews will be right in the epicenter of God's agenda again. But their glorious the days in this epicenter of God's agenda on earth will only last 7 years. I say glorious, but actually there is nothing glorious about it. First 3.5 years, they will have a lot of comfort because the Antichrist will have signed off 7-year peace treaty with them, and the Antichrist will honor that peace treaty for the first 3.5 years. But in the middle of it, Antichrist will come into the temple, which will be the newly built third temple. He will go into the Holy of Holies, and he will declare himself to be God. When the Jews refuse him as God, he will turn and start killing Jews like never before in human history. That will be much worse than the Holocaust of Hitler. So that will be the second half of the 7-year tribulation. What is for me so fascinating is this parallelity. From 0 AD to 70 AD, Jews were in decline, church were on the rise, the Gentile church. From 1948 until the day of rapture, church is on the decline, Jews are on the rise. because Jews still, or the nation of Israel, still have one more week of appointment with God on earth as God's representatives. And they're gonna do that. They're gonna have that one more week. You know, in the Bible prophecy terms, 1 week is 7 years. So this is the fascinating reality on this whole concept of mystery age or the church age. Now, keep your eyes on Jesus. We know from Bible prophecy, if the Jews are busy as they are now, preparing to build for the third temple, you know, Jews actually, some sources say, today the nation of Israel have everything they need to build the third temple in place already. They only wait for the Muslim mosque on the Temple Mount to be somehow removed. Then they are going to build the third temple in the blinking of an eye. And I believe Antichrist himself will be the one who will remove that Islamic mosque from the Temple Mount and give the Jews permission to build a third temple with the signing of the 7-year peace treaty. And Jews will build the temple. And right about the middle of the 7-year tribulation, temple will be finished. And the inauguration ceremony will coincide with the middle of the 7-year tribulation. And the Antichrist will come and sit there. He will be invited as a guest of honor, but he will go further than that. He will enter into the Holy of Holies and claim to be God. But of course, based on Bible prophecy, all of that will happen only after the rapture. So if we know that all these things are about to begin, that means the rapture is even closer. And if we know that rapture is so very close, it's very important that we are on the right page with Jesus Christ. If you are not a believer yet, make sure you give your life to Jesus. If you are a believer and you are not sure that you are on the right page with Jesus, please go to your bedroom, close your door, sit on the floor on your knees, and get right with Jesus. The time is short. Jesus is coming back soon. God bless you, and goodbye.